ladies, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm so excited for today's episode because I'm Iranian, as you guys know, and I'm going to be mixing and remaking an Iranian recipe called lubia polo. It means green bean and rice. I'm going to make it with tofu, but I'll also give you some tips in case if you want to make it with ground beef. I'm so excited. Let's get started. I'm going to show you the ingredients first. So first things first, I'm using white basmati rice. This is the type of rice that Iranians use. This is the type that you could actually soak overnight or a couple hours before you start cooking it. I'm soaking 2 cups of rice with water and salt, and I've left it for about 5 to 6 hours, but you could leave it more if you'd like. I have some Iranian tomato paste, but you could get tomato paste from anywhere you like. We need 3 large tomatoes, lots of green bean that I'm going to cut. I'll show you how to cut it. We need an onion. I'm also using firm tofu, so it's softer. If you don't have enough tofu, you could use tempeh. I'm using it for a taste. It actually tastes a little more like meat, I would say. But if you don't have tempeh, that's fine. You can just use more tofu. If you like crispy rice and if you're Iranian and you want your rice to be crispy in the bottom, we also sometimes use bread. So I bought organic sprouted spelt wrap, which is really nice and healthy. I don't know if you can get any healthier than this. So I'm gonna use this for the bottom of my dish. I have some guests coming over, so I just wanted to be a little fancy. But if you don't want to have it and you want to be healthier, you don't have to worry about the bread. You could just use the rice and follow the exact same steps I'm gonna follow. You're going to still have some crispy rice in the bottom of your pot, but not necessarily the bread, which is fine and a lot healthier, so less oil. Now the next step is to cut everything up, and I'm going to show you how I cut them. We will need a large pan to cook everything in it. Also, if you are using meats, make sure you leave the meats outside, the ground meats outside, so it's at room temperature. You don't want it to be too cold before cooking it. So what we're going to do first is that we're going to grab a bunch of beans, and we're going to line them up so they're all the same length. We're going to remove the heads. Then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to turn them around, and then we're going to line them up again and try to remove the heads again. And then what we'll do is that we're going to cut them in smaller pieces like this. Maybe around 1 or 1.5 centimeter is fine. We're going to leave this aside, and we're going to repeat this process for all of our beans. I've seen in my other videos, I'm going to leave the organic base in my organic box, so this is gonna go straight into the green bean. So this is how my beans look like. They're almost pretty much the same size, but I'm not too picky, so we're gonna leave this aside. Next, we're going to be cutting the onion in very small pieces, so we're gonna dice it, and then I'm going to be grating the tomatoes. This dish, since it's a vegan dish, half of onion is perfectly enough. If you are making meat, you want to use a whole onion. Next, we're going to be grating our tomatoes. We're going to cut them in half, and I'd like to remove these little green spots. Okay, we're almost done grating the tomatoes. As you can see, when I grate it, I try to use as much as I can, and then I remove the skin because I don't like the texture of that in my food. So this is my own crushed tomatoes. If you would like to buy something from outside or buy a can, make sure it doesn't have preservatives, make sure that it doesn't have any other ingredients or added sugar to it. I'm also using firm tofu, so it's softer and it's easier to break apart. What I'm going to do is to cut it up and let it dry so it doesn't have a lot of water and it doesn't ruin my rice. Next, I also wanted to add my tempeh as well. So this is what tempeh looks like if you guys haven't seen it before. It is actually delicious. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm going to be cutting it up in small dices. Okay guys, so the next step is to add some cooking olive oil. This is purpose for cooking, so you could be using it at high temperatures. Once the onions are fried, so you're gonna fry your onions first, then if you're using meat, you're going to dice it and you're just gonna fry it with your onion, add some salt and pepper or some kind of a seasoning that you'd like. Nothing fancy, nothing Italian or anything specific. The only thing that if you'd like to add is going to go really well with this is a little bit of a cinnamon. My onions have been cooking for more than 5 minutes. They're ready to go, so I'm going to add my beans. A little bit of salt, a little pepper. Now since I'm not going to be using meat, my food doesn't have a lot of water to cook with, so I will add a cup of water. And let's cover the lid and let it cook. Now that the beans have been cooking for 2 minutes, I'm going to add the tomato, and I'll add a big tablespoon of tomato paste. Then I would add my tofu and tempeh. I'm only adding half of my tempeh. I'm gonna keep this for later. Give it a good mix and cover the lid. I will let this cook on medium for 10 minutes. At the same time, our water is boiling, so it's time to add the rice. First thing, I will drain the rice and I will remove the water. Then I would add it to my pot. Then I'm gonna wait for the rice to start adjusting the temperature and start boiling again. Once it boils for 1.5 minutes, then I'm gonna start draining it again. As soon as your rice starts doing this, remove it immediately. And then you want to rinse your rice with cold water to stop the cooking process. You're going to drain your rice. You want to make sure your rice is as dry as possible and there's not a lot of water in it. Then the next step is to get your pot ready to cook your rice. Now if you want crispy rice or crispy bread in the bottom of your pot, you want to add a little bit more oil than normal. Not a lot, but just a little bit more than usual. And then you want to add a tablespoon of water. Then you're going to put it on the stove on a very high heat. And at this point you can add your bread. So you want to make sure you lift the bread occasionally so there's no water trapped between your pot and the bread. Also, your meat and tofu should be ready as well. Make sure the water is almost gone because you don't want your rice to be too soggy. The next step is to start layering your rice. At this point, your rice is really dry, so you do a layer of this, a very, very thin layer in the beginning. Then you can add a little bit of cinnamon and then start your meat or tofu. I'm gonna use this because I want to let the water out in my pan, and then once it's dried out, I'm going to add it to my rice. Keep in mind this is on high heat because we want that crispy rice to be perfect. Add a little bit of cinnamon and start layering again. Add the entire rice. We poke holes and close the lid. Then we're gonna actually wet our finger. I usually lick it. And then I'm gonna try 1/3 of the pot. I'm gonna put my finger very quickly. If it starts sizzling, it's time to add water. You're going to put this, you're gonna put this on a dishcloth, and I'm gonna be ready to put the lid on the pot. So what I'll do is that I'll add a little bit of oil and then a glass of water around my pot. And then close the lid right away. And then I'm gonna turn it low to a medium immediately. So now it starts to cook, and I'm gonna put my alarm for 28 minutes. and it will be ready in 28 minutes. See you guys then. Okay guys, our dish is fully ready. I put it in this nice dish, and because I have guests over, what I do usually to kind of have a better presentation, I soak a little bit of saffron in water, hot water, and I leave a little bit of the rice aside, and I add the saffron water to my rice. I mix it really well, and I add it to my dish. That's it. I hope you guys love this video. Hope you make it and love it. If you did, make sure you leave a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye bye.